tell me about the sneakers game. I'm not hot on the sneakers game. My team do sneakers, by the way, but like I'm like,
Sure.
I have no idea. I let them do it. So like, do you do like one-offs? Do you do limited editions, or are you doing more generic sneakers? And like, if people are interested to get into sneakers, what kind of advice would you give for them?
Yeah, for sure. So that is almost my borderline pet peeve, if you will. Not pet peeve. I go by Kick Flips on Twitter. That's the name of my group because it started off flipping kicks, reselling sneakers. As time's gone on, that's actually a very small part of what I do now. So it's, I think, one of the biggest questions I get, specifically as it relates to either people asking for Amazon advice or if they want to join the community is like, do you flip anything other than sneakers? I'm interested. I'm like, yeah, we flip way more than that. But that is where I got my start. And I still think it's a fantastic market, athletic apparel, sneakers. So I started out, at least as it relates to kind of sharing information, in the limited edition sneaker space. So it's not necessarily like one-offs, but it might be more as related to talking about botting. Harder to get if these drop on, the Nike sneakers app, Foot Locker, whatever you might have. They're going to sell out immediately, and not just sell out immediately, but it's usually like a raffle or lottery system where a lot of people are going to want them and a majority of them are not going to be able to get them because you might have 12,000 pairs available with 120,000 entries, things like that. So that's sort of the space I got my start in. That space is still hot, but it's cooled a lot between 2018 and 2021. COVID was really big for price inflation, but especially with stuff like that, because lots of economic factors, at least in the United States, stimulus checks was a big one. But also there was just a lot more consumer discretionary income floating out there because the economy was good, but because of lockdown, people had no place to spend that money. And so it started going to a lot of things I was flipping: PlayStation consoles, cool sneakers, GPUs. I'm home all day. Might as well play PlayStation. They're hard to get and I have money to spend on them. It was, obviously, unfortunate circumstance to say the least, COVID. But in my specific realm of, things we were flipping, it was kind of the perfect storm. Sneakers have cooled off since then, but there's still a lot of things you can reliably count on to perform well. And I think one of the cool things that we're shifting over to, I'm not sure if you've ever talked to Jarek Lewis. I think it goes by like Jerry Lou. He's somebody else in the space who's fantastic. He's done a lot of articles, tweets, write-ups, things like that about long-term Lego investing. Is how if you were to hold certain Lego sets over a long period of time, you would actually outperform the stock market in most circumstances. The same is true of many sneakers as well, as if you're looking at certain, basically just colorways, drops, models, whatever it might be. There's a little bit less historic data to go off of compared to Legos, and it does seem that they're a little bit more market or economic, sensitive than Legos. But you can do some long-term hold for 6 months, a year, several years on certain models, and also likely see returns that can not only rival, but probably predictably outperform the stock market as well. So sort of the three verticals you can go in sneakers, and sorry, I'm taking forever to answer every single question you're asking, is you can sort of do the limited edition quick flip of sneakers, which are a bunch of these are dropping, whether it's through bots, whether it's just through, honestly, a lot of it is sheer luck. It's just, hey, I entered this lottery to win a pair of sneakers and I won. Cool, I made money. You can just immediately sell them. You can long-term invest in some, which is either you do get them as soon as they come out, or let's say they came out for $200 retail, resales $300. I buy them now, and if I think I hold them for a year, I might be able to sell them for $400. All right, that's pretty solid. That's 33.3%, growth. That's, over the past 20 years, the stock market might have done that twice. Probably not. That's not bad at all. And then there's going to be this sort of like brick flipping. These are the things that you're going to be seeing a lot more on Amazon, and probably what your team does the most of, if I had to guess. That's sort of the buying of pretty normal shoes, usually at a discount or using coupons, things like that, where the idea is not these are hard to get and therefore people are going to pay a premium for it. The idea is that people are going to pay a fairly normal market price for them, but I'm able to get them a lot cheaper than market because of sales, clearance, discount, cash back, whatever it might be. That's typically when people are going to be sourcing on Amazon. The majority of the shoes that are going to be going there, I do that myself as well. If you're familiar with East Bay going out of business, that was a huge one. My biggest regret of 2023 so far was not spending all the money I had when East Bay went out of business. I did not go nearly hard enough, but that was sort of an example of that. These are not shoes that everybody really, really wants per se from they're not like Jordans in that to an extent they're like a status symbol, if you will, or they're not collectible. They're just people like wearing NMDs. People like wearing Nike free runs, and Nike sells them for $80 and people might pay $90 for them on Amazon because they get the free 2-day shipping, they get lenient return, things. But when East Bay went out of business, you could buy them for $30. That's a pretty standard example of brick flipping. And now that's about as good of a sale as you'll ever see. When I'm typically buying a pair of sneakers, I think I bought some the other day that might be moving online for $180, and I had a bunch of coupons, so I might be able to buy them for $105 or something like that. Still going to see good profit margins, but it's not quite the same thing as that nutty ROI. But typically the way that works, bricks are what they call them, and they're just called that because the price fell. It sort of became a derogatory term for a sneaker that they thought was going to be limited and do well. But it sort of then became a term for anything that's just you're buying it for below retail price and then selling it for a fairly normal price. And that's going to be the standard Amazon model. Most of these other shoes you're going to be seeing sold at an eBay, at a StockX, at a GOAT, typically more sneakers-centric platforms.
No, I like that. Thank you. Obviously, interesting to know. Question for you. I want to kind of move on. A lot of people who I interview and a lot of people I talk to, they're quite big on social. Obviously, you are in regards to, if you say like Twitter. Why? Like, I know why I do it, but I'm always like, I'm asking this question for anyone who's not big on social. Why should they go on social? Like, come on, man, you should be hustling. Get off Twitter, get off Instagram, start hustling. Like, why do you do it? What advice do you have for them as well?
I'm biggest on Twitter. We were discussing before we started recording. I'm trying to get a lot more into the game on things like Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and for different reasons. So I started off trying to grow on Twitter, frankly, to make more money. Very, very frankly, the reason I started off on there is I do run a reselling community. I'd like to think that we are, I was going to say objectively. I can't be objective. I run it. I'd like to think we are one of, if not, pretty top tier best in the game in terms of helping people make money, making it accessible, affordable, and still providing a great bulk of information. But granted, nobody is going to join that if we don't have eyeballs on it. So that was kind of the impetus for starting. I think if you don't have a product or a service or anything like that to sell, which is, I did starting out, one of the biggest tangential benefits I've seen, and I would have done that, I'd like to think it would have been smart to do this even if I didn't, was just frankly a connections network sort of thing. The fact of the matter is, even if you were to take away the fact that, sure, I do offer services and products related to reselling, the network which I've grown, it's very difficult to put a price figure on that because my experience on social media is going to be different than somebody else's in terms of the connections they'll make, the network that they'll have. I have made exponentially more money, and equally as important, or maybe not important, but related to that, I've learned so much more from the people that I've met where I can just text somebody a question about something, or people are sending me not just leads, but now it's full on business ideas, deals like, hey, you know how you're making like 30% on that? Do you want to see how to make 40% on this just through this portal, whatever it might be, which is literally just completely a function of I had just been in my lane. Cool. Who's to say what the counterfactual is? Maybe I'd have more time to be spending sourcing and I would have made just as much. Maybe I would have made a lot more if I wasn't. But I can speak to the reality of what I do know, which is I have a network where I've learned an insane amount of things that I likely would never have known if I would have stayed in my own bubble. So if you are somebody who is, looking to get into reselling, sure, maybe you don't have a ton to like share in terms of here's why you should try to establish a brand on social, but at least being in the thick of it in the network, being the DMs, that's just paid off so wildly for me, just in terms of the sheer information and connections that I've made where it's not just knowledge, it's really like, hey, I saw you tweeted about Nike. I like work there, or like I have a connection there. Like, do you just want a 40% off code? I'm like, yes, I would like a 40% off code. And like things like that, like come across, the DMs, I'm sure they do for you as well all the time, which is simply because you're living in that world. Specifically as somebody who is a bigger seller, I'm trying to provide, free value daily on social media. And so some people feel like, hey, you've helped me out a ton. Is there anything I can help you with? Here's, check out this discount code, or hey, have you thought of this? Or hey, I run a business sort of related to this. Is there any way we can like partner up? Would this be of any interest to you? I think that if you have something to sell and it's actually a good product, then that's a pretty straight line way to, just monetize that. But even if you don't, I think that the connections, the network, and, the information and perks that you're going to pick up from that can definitely be a net positive. And then, like I said, as it relates to this, I started off just on Twitter because I wanted to get more sales on my community. Now I'm taking a pretty sharp turn specifically as it relates to like my Instagram and TikTok content, which is, all right, cool. My reselling community, we're capping at 1,000 members and we're at 900 right now. So I'm really going to have no financial incentive after 100 more members to really do this. So I want to take a really harder 180 where I'm still going to be like, I'm sure it'll be waitlists and stuff like that. Like every online community has churn, but I want to be a little bit less like, hey, did you see this? Here's how we made $800 in 2 hours, or here's how we made $40 per unit on this flip. I want it to be a lot more in general, which is here's how this stuff works. Here's why you should do it. Just to kind of establish just a little bit more like how much can I give away for free in terms of the information. And if some of that trickles down to, okay, I'm going to show you exactly how I do everything. Now, if you want the actual leads, or if you want the actual softwares, if you want like, here's a discount on a prep center, then you will have to like join for that information. But I want it to be a lot more just like, in the words of like Alex Hormozzi, like make your free things better than everyone else's paid things, which is, hey, like I'm happy to open the door because this pie is so big. And also like I could give 1,000 people an item lead and less than 10 of them are going to buy it, I'm pretty sure as well too. I think that, that's one of the things I hammer a lot on Twitter is like, you don't need to know more. You just need to like open your seller account because you've bookmarked 30 threads about reselling today and you don't even have an Amazon seller account. And so that's kind of one of the things is like, if I can just keep getting that bubble bigger, if I can give away as much as I can possibly give away in the form of free information, some of that I'm sure is going to sort of like trickle back to me, make me an authority. I'll have a lot more network and can, just selfishly, I'm sure I'll see an even bigger exponential growth. And I don't know what the dollar value will be, but I'll have more DMs for people who just want to make those connections or say like, hey, check this out. Hey, did you know you can do this? And so to answer your question, I think social media is just the biggest network there is. Because if you're just in your lane grinding every day, you are going to be incredibly focused. You are probably going to grind to a moderately successful point, but you're still only going to be the sum of all of the intellect, knowledge, and experience that you yourself have. Whereas when you're on social media, you might delay the amount of focused grind time that you have. You should still be putting that in. It's not like I'm on social media 24/7, but you're going to be the sum of your entire network's knowledge, experience, things like that, which over a long-term period, I think is going to be worth a lot more than just you grinding all by yourself, being the sum of only your knowledge and experience.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's like, I think the saying I kind of think about is you don't know what you don't know. And I always think about it as like grinding's great, but it's a linear growth. And our job is to leverage other people's knowledge and experience and turn it into an exponential growth curve. And, some people are like, oh, but I'm going to give this away. And like, interesting enough, like I've made my best connections when I've like had a conversation with someone and just given them like, say, just do this, man. Like it doesn't really cost me anything. And they've come back and repaid it like 200x. Yeah. And like, wow. Or it's just like you put goodwill out there. But I think the real question is, how many, like, you must get hit up all the time. Hey, man, like, can you help me out? And they're like, I would love to, but like, why? Everyone's asking for your help. And it's like, but if someone's out there already sharing some knowledge and say, hey, can you help me out? Like, I know you're a genuine guy. Yeah, I'm happy to help you. But like, give and then you shall receive, should we say? I think is a really interesting point. Go on.
Exactly. Yeah. And sort of like to both of those points, I'd say, 2 years ago, I didn't make my first hire until about a year and a half or so ago. And I think that it was a lot easier for me to track a linear progression of my growth, both in income and of everything, where it's just, I'm going to grind and all right, ticking up here. Like it's going well. Now, like I'm kind of like a lot bouncy because like I have a lot more money going out now that I'm hiring more and things like that. And also my growth is kind of like bouncing around. But as I'm to like zoom out of the day to day, because back then I could just like work for a few hours and see how much I made in a day. And as a percentage of my income, it was, more substantial in terms of now where it's like, I could work all day and, just churn happens. I get some returns. Like, I still made money today, but it didn't feel like I was like growing. But if I'm to zoom out on the 2-year spectrum, the amount of money that I am making, I don't like to use the word passive income because that feels a lot more like I'm just investing a dividend and I have to do nothing because we're still, think about yourself. Like we're still managing. It doesn't feel passive, but because of it, and I can attribute it mainly to social media because of the connections I made and talking about, it's almost like an old, like Rich Dad, Poor Dad, like Robert Kiyosaki thing is like, I was self-employed for a long time and I still kind of am, but now I'm kind of moving into that business owner mindset. I can directly attribute, like you said, and kind of like building that leverage is now there's a lot more money being made that I don't know about, but it's like that money got made while I was completely doing something else and I didn't really know it was going to be made. Whereas back then I would grind for 10 hours. And I think most people who are in that zone, like I'm just going to shut down all focus. If money's being made, you were there when it happened, you knew about it and you were responsible for it. Whereas when you start trying to operationalize and grow something, I'll just wake up the next day and refresh one tab and I was like, oh, cool. Like we pulled in $300 profit yesterday from that. Like that's really cool. I didn't touch a button. My systems did that. And I think that I would not have known how to do that if I was just like zoned in on one thing. Focus is incredibly important. But once again, like I think you have to know like the skills that take you from 0 to 1 are not the skills that take you from 1 to 5 and so on and so forth. I think there's a lot of people who try to build the enterprise before they've gone from 0 to 1, and in which case you do need to build those building blocks. But once you reach a certain critical mass, like you need to have that network, which is going to show you what you don't know.
And I think it also, like, oh my God, there's so much on that. Like, the other one I kind of add to that is the fact that $1 million might sound like a lot of money. And it is until you meet someone doing 100 million or 10 million. Yeah. And then the 10 million sounds like a lot until you meet the 100 million guy. And you're like, then the 100 million guy meets the $1 billion guy. And then the $1 billion guy meets the guy who's like, $1 billion? That's a rounding error. It's like, whoa, like there are levels to the game and at each different levels you need to see it. But when we talk about like reselling on Amazon, probably when we first start off, we think that people doing $10,000 10,000 a month are like, wow, they must be balling, because we think 10,000 is like how much money they make, and then we realize it's not, and then we kind of realize like actually 10,000 is really easy to get to. Like, no disrespect to anyone struggling right now, like it is hard when you first start, but relative to later on. I appreciate your time, and it's been really interesting. So like botting, sneakers, the community, and the course. If anyone wants to get in contact, what's the best way? How can they learn more about you?
Yeah, for sure. So I'm pretty, like you said, I might take a day or so, but I'm really responsive to DMs. The best place to find me is on Twitter. My username is Kickflips, just KICKFLIPS. I think there's an underscore on there. Me and Thomas were discussing earlier, I've been kind of running a prank for the past month or so, just so my profile picture is a very like attractive, cute girl smiling. So if you're watching this around the time it comes out, just know that is me. That's going to be the best place to reach out, is going to be Kickflips with an underscore, as well as I send out one free lead, whether it's Amazon, eBay, stuff like that, every single day straight to your email. And you can join that at kickflips.co. And you can literally just respond to that email if you want to, and that will go straight to me as well if you were, not on Twitter, not on social. But you can get your free lead every day, and then also feel free just to respond to that email, and it will go back to me, and it will be me replying to you.
Fantastic. I love that. And I by the way, if anyone's interested, I've dropped it all down below, so I'll drop it under this video. But I also did say, I was like, can I just say it's a real disappointment how you look when you first jumped on the course? Because I'm
a lot cuter on Twitter.
Yeah. But obviously I've had a conversation with you, so I know the voice. I'm like, that's not a girl. So yeah, don't be surprised on Twitter if you see a cute girl. Casey, I just want to say thank you so much for everything you've shared. Hopefully I can kind of touch base in 1 year's time, see how you're getting on, and obviously kind of do an update on the journey, and obviously see what cool automation hacks you've done, maybe like botting with ChatGTP, like where are we going in the world? It's going to be super interesting. So I just want to say thank you so much. And obviously do check out the links down below, and obviously connect with Casey as well. So thank you so much, Casey.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.